Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. A talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me through benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcasts. People of Distinction is internationally syndicated solely due to the love and support that you all continue to give. We're available across all major distributors, and as long as you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in, because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Bonnie L. Norem. Now we're going to be discussing her impactful book, Psychological Development of Man as Expressed Through Biblical Themes. It's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, it's a lot of other places. But if you want to gather it all, head on over to her personal site. That's biblicalpsychologybook.com. There, gather more information on Bonnie, on her book, hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing pages. Man, I'm telling you, it's a one-stop shop for it all. Again, that's biblicalpsychologybook.com. And I quickly want to take this opportunity and point out the fact that Bonnie was brought to us by Author Reputation Press. So for writers out there listening in, if you've gone through your process and now you need some assistance, man, you got the book, but you need help moving it, head on over to authorreputationpress.com and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is well equipped to help you do just that. It is an absolute pleasure to have Bonnie here on the line. People, today's big idea, today's topic of discussion is the Bible, right? But the Bible as the original psychology textbook. Now, okay, listen, that sounds provocative, right? Well, our guest, psychologist and scholar Bonnie Norem, man, she makes a compelling case that major biblical themes aren't just historical or theological. They're actually a masterclass in human development. Sit back, strap in, man. We are diving into her book to unpack how ancient stories of exile, of suffering, and community give us a radical framework for modern mental and spiritual health. So whether you are struggling with a personal transition, you're feeling disconnected, or even seeking purpose, man, this book expertly fuses modern psychology with timeless biblical themes to offer a resonant guide for our life journeys. This is going to be a good one, man. Here we go. Bonnie, first and foremost, welcome to the network, and thank you for being a guest. How are you doing today?
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to talk.
Of course. Bonnie, it's a pleasure. I think what you've done by merging these two otherwise, I guess, separate fields, right? I mean, you're talking about biblical themes and correlating them with the understanding of psychology. I think that is a wonderful take and something that is going to offer a lot of wisdom. So we're looking forward to the discussion. Start off, first and foremost, by telling us a little bit more about yourself.
I'm from a scientific background, working with computers for years, and was always interested in psychology in a sense. And the reason why I got involved with this was because of a flood that we were in, where our house was destroyed with 10 feet of water on the outside and inside the house. And we had 50 or more people come afterwards to help clean up the mess. And while they were cleaning out the basement, between the rafters of the basement were two books. And one was by Viktor Frankl and the other by Carl Jung. And they were completely dry. They were never touched by the flood. I don't know how the books got there. And I'd never seen them before. But I just felt, to me, that was a God instance of something that I should be reading at that time, when all I could think of was, how am I going to be paying for this flood? And how are we going to get back to normal? And so after the flood, I did read the two books, and I found a lot of meaning in both books. One with Viktor Frankl and in the concentration camp, the Nazi, and the suffering that he went through and the people around him. One of the main things with him was that he still had hope and looked to the future and to the people that are in the past that he was wanting to be with again. And the other people around him that were dying were hopeless. They didn't look forward to anything. And being in a flood, I thought that's what I need to do.
Well, listen, thank you very much for all of that. My follow-up now that I want to go into, and I think it gets to the heart of the book, and it's nuanced. So there are a lot of other things that are being discussed, but you mentioned that the reaction provoked by suffering as a key problem in achieving wholeness. And I think that's a pivotal component in something that it really gets to the heart of the matter. So my follow-up now is, how does your approach, how does your biblical psychological synthesis reframe suffering not as a symptom to be eliminated, but actually as a critical catalyst for development?
First, one of my favorite people in the Bible is Joseph, and how he suffered. And he started out with a dreamer, and it made his brothers and jealous and envious of him, and how him being sold to be a slave and his suffering all through that and being in prison. He became a hero, and he trusted in God all the way, and he was just as successful in prison as he was out being a slave for Pharaoh. And then he saved the country when they went through the 7 years of drought and no food, where he saved or had them save up the grain for the people so they could live for the 7 years of drought in their country.
Bonnie, thank you, because I think this is, again, following this discussion, now that we've entered Joseph into the conversation, one of the most shocking moments is when Joseph tests and ultimately forgives his brothers, right?
Oh, yeah.
In a modern context of trauma and therapy, how does your book frame this process?
His brothers still felt guilty when they came begging for help and not even knowing that it was their brother that they were talking to until like the third or fourth time they came. And then they thought he was going to get back at them and do things. And he had told them that God had forgiven them, and it wasn't him, and God used him for the good. And I think for me, it was a real attitude change of how one looks at trouble. We can mourn and be angry and let the anger and jealousy and envy destroy us, or we can look to the future and see hope and thanksgiving in what opportunities we have at hand. Like in prison, when there was a baker and what was the other one? Anyway, two men, and they had these dreams, and they didn't know what they meant. And so he gave them the meaning. One was not a good outcome because he was going to be beheaded because of who he was, but the other one would be released. And it was through his dreams in prison that finally Pharaoh had a dream about the wheat and everything, and he was the only one that could interpret it for him, and so he got to be the one to do it. But his attitude all along was he was doing the best he could do, in the situation. And it wasn't through the anger and getting back at the one that was putting him there, like his brother or Pharaoh's wife.
People, I'm telling you, man, you got to head on over and purchase copies. Remember, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, it's biblicalpsychologybook.com. Head on over there, purchase your copies today. So much more than an entertaining read, right? Like, it has entertainment aspects, but this is an education. This is something that's going to help shift your perspective, allow you to look inwardly to change the world outside of you. And that, I think, is so key. And also is something we all need right now. So head on over and purchase your copies. You know, Bunny, another aspect that you cover in the book is you identify running away from the challenge as another key problem, right? That is something that needs to be rectified, but also is something that is very human, right? That fight or flight response is within all of us. So let's examine that further. From your perspective, what does the Bible prescribe as the antidote to this flight response?
Jonah was about me, himself, and he did not want to go to Nineveh and help heal them where they had not even heard of God or a way of love. And he knew he didn't feel that they could hear it, but in reality, it was him that had the wrong attitude and not wanting to hear that God could make a change in those people's lives. And even though when he finally goes and witnesses to them, at the end, he feels sorry for himself underneath wilting tree that God gave him. And his attitude hadn't changed. And he couldn't look at the good that was being done for other people. It was all about me. And I think that is one thing that we look at today in many of our conflicts.
Bonnie, as we start to transition and we close out here, let's now pay it forward. I mean, listen, everything that you've said thus far can be interpreted and taken as a way of already offering guidance.
Right.
But now let's get very specific here, okay? For the readers out there, if a reader were to use your book as a tool for self-inquiry, what is the very first question that you'd encourage them to ask themselves as they reflect on their own life narrative?
The thing that comes to my mind is, what are you thankful for, or have you thanked anyone for the good that they have done? I think we just think when someone does something, that's okay, and don't give thanks and are grateful for what we do get and have.
Yeah.
But we look more at what we don't have, or thinking that they may have done better. How often do we thank someone when they have corrected us? I look back when I was in college working in a pharmacy, and my boss, he owned the pharmacy, and he was a recovered alcoholic, and he was grumpy with me because I was a teenager that was silly, and so he would discipline me. And yet I saw he was so loving, even in the discipline. He gave me raises, and then he would thank me for things that I did do right. But he didn't let me get by with my silliness. And to me, I learned a lot from him. He was one of the best bosses I ever had, but one that yelled at me most of the time.
Well, listen, it's all about interpretation, right? Sometimes the message, it's not delivered in the best way, but it's concrete, right? And it has its effect.
Right.
People, trust me when I tell you, man, we have barely scratched the surface. I'm going to say it one last time. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, biblicalpsychologybook.com. You got to head on over there. You got to pick up your copies. And what I loved so much about this conversation is the idea that our psychological and spiritual development are on the same continuum, right? Like that's transformative, man. That is a wonderful perception to take. And what I now push forward to all of you listening in is allow this to be the takeaway, man. Your journey has a pattern. It has a purpose. It has a profound precedent. And I love that not only because of this discussion, but because so much of it imbues what we stand for here through People of Distinction. This is exactly why we do the show, to find tools for integrated living. So listen, man, your homework now for you listening in, first and foremost, pick up copies of this amazing book and identify one critical transition that you're in right now. And we'd love to hear back from you. Tell us what you discovered. Tag us, drop a review. Let us know where you are on this journey and how this amazing book helped you along the way. Let's get started today. Bonnie, this has been a true pleasure, a wonderful delight. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.